Triple kill. Quadra kill.
What's going on, everybody? It's Kill Switch coming back for another Teacher Tuesday episode. This one being the 13th in the series. I'll start this one like I usually do. I'm saying thank you guys for all the support, all the views, all the subscribers, all that stuff. I really appreciate it. I'm glad this stuff's getting out to you guys. Hopefully it's helping in some way, shape, or form. I know we missed last week's video, and this one's probably going to be a little bit late, but I appreciate your guys' patience. Sometimes, you know, life happens and we all get busy and stuff, so don't worry if we do miss a week with one of these, or if they're late. I do apologize, but we will be getting these out to you regularly, so don't worry about that. And I'll try and let you guys know if I'm ever going to be late or if I'm going to have to miss a week and so on and so forth. So just bear with me. We'll make it through these, and I'll get these overviews out to you as soon as I possibly can. So with that being said, I would like to add in that I do plan on adding in some other different types of like tutorials or overviews or things like that. Those should be coming here pretty soon. I'm going to try and get you an overview for a hero and maybe a small tutorial or something like that in the same week. That may not always be possible, but I will do my best to get those to you as well. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our hero of this week.
Worth a shot.
That hero
two.
is going to be Grux. So Grux is one of my favorite heroes, and I played a lot of Grux in Paragon. That was actually my main, so I got a pretty good base of knowledge on Grux, and he's just a really good hero overall in general, especially in the jungle. He's one of the better junglers at the moment, so really good hero. We'll get into his kit and everything, his builds and all that. Starting off though, we'll start with just the base stats. Base stats here, you know, just like with any hero, like there's nothing crazy. You're not going to learn a ton from this, but it's nice to see like starting off what the values are. Mainly something you're going to be looking for starting off is like your armor ratings and stuff like that. Maybe your move speed and your attack range, just to see like kind of like what you're going to be dealing with, like what to expect. So nothing crazy here, just kind of basic stuff. So let's go ahead and hop into his first ability here. So his first ability is his seismic pull. So channel for up to 1.6 seconds at all levels to pull units towards you and deal between 53.2, 79, 104.8, 130.6, 156.4, and 106.4, 158, 209.6, 261.2, and 312.8 damage based on charge time. I know that was a lot of info there. Basically what it's saying is minimum channel time at your different ability levels. This is the damage you're gonna do, and then maximum channel time is gonna be your damage here, and that is physical damage. So basically your range at level 1 is going to be between 53.2 and 106.4. So somewhere in there, depending on how long you channel that ability. The pull range increases, but the width decreases over charge time. So basically, as soon as you channel that, it's going to be at its widest cone. The longer you channel it, it's going to get skinnier and skinnier, but it's going to extend the range. So this is a really good ability. This is his like re-engage ability, or his ability for an escaping enemy. And also it is technically a type of a crowd control ability as well, because pulling an enemy with this ability will stun them in a way. I always think back to like pulling a Gideon that's using his ultimate. This will pull him out of his ultimate, just like any other type of like stun or knock-up would. So works for any type of channeling abilities as well, like a Narbash channeled ult. This will pull him out of it as well. So really good ability. Your damage down here, we're not really worrying about that, simply because it's going to be kind of in a range. But your physical power scaling though does go up at all levels, and so max level it's 80. That's pretty good. This isn't going to be your highest damage dealing ability, but whenever your other abilities do scale well with your physical power, it's always nice to have. Cooldown is pretty high, 20 seconds at level 1, and then 18, 16, 14, and 12. So pretty lengthy cooldown. You'll probably build a little bit of cooldown reduction with Grux in the build somewhere, so I mean that might go down a little bit, but just remember it is a little bit longer of a cooldown, so you're not just going to be able to spam this. Now mana cost, 90, 85, 80, 75, and 70. So this is one of the abilities that actually goes down in mana cost the more you level it up. So it's one of those like abilities you want to prioritize. Maybe not necessarily the first one you want to prioritize, but it is something you want to make sure that you level up because of that mana cost, being able to use it, not have to worry about your mana and all that. So your minimum range is 750 units. That's going to be this first value here for the damage as well. And then your maximum range is 1200 units. And that's going to be this ladder damage value here. Your angle is 80. And your ending angle, so that would be at your maximum channel time, would be 45 degrees. So that kind of gives you a better detail without going along with the visual there to see how kind of that works. So moving on to the next ability, that's his E, that's his Okaros charge. Charge forward, dealing 50, 85, 120, 155, and 190 physical damage. Colliding with an enemy hero ends Okaros charge early and knocks up the target. So this is a really good ability. It's a movement ability as well as a knockup. Now, using this ability to escape can be kind of tricky in the sense that if you're trying to use this solely as an escape, the potential for colliding with an enemy will ruin your escape essentially. So, and players know that when they're facing a Grux, so if they have a Grux low in a fight or something like that, they know that he can use Okaros charge to get out. Well, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll stand in front of him so that if he does try to charge, he'll just knock them up and not go anywhere. Now, the knockup is still good, don't get me wrong, but if you're like trying to get out of a fight and someone blocks your Okaros charge, then you know you're kind of dead in the water there. But something to keep in mind with that ability. The damage on this, again, this is accurate to what it says up here, so we won't go into that. Your physical power scaling is 50, so not really that high. You still get a little bit of damage out of it as you build, but nothing too crazy. Your cooldown, little bit on the high side, 16, 14 and a half, 13, 11 and a half, and 10. Not too bad, but still a little high. Your mana cost is 70 at all levels, so you really don't need to prioritize this one. Typically, you will probably prioritize this one last if you're prioritizing one of your abilities or a couple of your abilities. So your range on this is 1,000 units, so pretty good distance. And the width of the travel is 265. So overall, good ability. Not necessarily the one that you'll want to prioritize, but still a good ability. Alright, moving on to his ultimate. That is his Challenger's Rage. Let out a monstrous roar, gaining 26.6, 31.6, and 36.6 bonus physical power for 12 seconds and gain 1, 2, 3, at max level stacks of Crushing Blows. So Crushing Blows is going to be his passive, and I'll get into that when we get down there, and tell you kind of why this is important. Grux is unstoppable during the cast time. So the cast time, I can't remember exactly what it is. It's probably about maybe a second long, maybe a little less. But basically, if you know a stun or a CC or something is coming, you can time this. You got to be pretty good at it, but you got to time this right, and you can actually completely avoid that crowd control ability. So that is also a really awesome plus side to this ability. Now, your physical power gained is different. It's inaccurate from this up here, but your basic attack damage scaling, now this is where things start to get interesting, because when you start scaling off your basic attack damage, that's when you can start really like getting into the damage behind Grux. Adding 20 basic attack damage scaling is pretty big, because that means you're not just getting physical power, you're actually getting scaling from your basic attacks as well, which is generally a higher value, so that's pretty nice to have. Now the cooldown, 110 at level 1, 95 at level 2, and 80 at max level. That's about in line with what an ultimate would be, especially one of this caliber, so that's in a pretty good spot, I think. And your mana cost is 100, which is, again, that's rightfully so. So really good ability, has kind of some utility as well. Typically what it's going to be is it's going to be a mid-fight or an early in the fight where a team's trying to lock you down, and maybe you can cast this to avoid a crowd control ability or something like that, and continue the fight or continue your pursuit of an enemy. But you can also just completely use this as a full-on offensive ability and just pop this right before your fight, especially if you know you're going into a fight with somebody who doesn't have any crowd control or anything like that to stop you. You just pop this and all of a sudden you're hitting like a truck. So good ability. Obviously you're going to prioritize this one. Usually you're going to prioritize your ultimate because it's only 3 levels and you can only upgrade it so many, so often, so you'll prioritize this one. Alright, moving on to his auto attack. Club, nothing crazy, just melee attack. Then moving on to his right mouse button. So this is his cleave. Cleave all units caught in front of yourself, dealing 83, 93.8, 104.6, 115.4, and 126.2 damage. Applies bleed, dealing 4% at all levels, maximum health damage every second for 4 seconds, and applying trauma for the duration. So this is Grux's bread and butter right here. The reason being is because you're getting a bleed proc, which deals 4% of the enemy's maximum health damage per second, but you're also applying trauma, which is going to reduce their healing. So it's kind of like a 2-for ability here. You're getting 2 bonuses, and once I get into these numbers down here, this is where it gets kind of crazy. So your damage, we're not going to worry about that. That's not accurate to this. But your basic attack damage scaling. So this is at level 1, this is 100, and then 110, 120, 130, and 140 at max level. So this damage, basic attack damage scaling right here is what's going to make this even better, because you're going to deal damage based off of your basic attack damage with this ability. This is your highest damage dealing ability. The more damage that you have for your basic attacks, this ability is going to also increase, as well as being able to increase with just plain physical power. Adding in the bleed and the trauma, this is by far his best ability, and this is the one you're going to prioritize probably the most. Typically what I do is I will prioritize this one until I can't level it up, and then I'll prioritize the Q. And then obviously the ultimate, and then focusing the Okaros charge last. So the cooldown on this is also really low, which is nice because you can kind of just spam this in a sense. 8 seconds, 7.5, 7, 6.5, and 6 at max level. So pretty low cooldown, and your mana cost 30, 35, 40, 45, and 50. It does go up, but only to 50. So again, cooldown's pretty low, your basic attack damage scaling is through the roof, and your mana cost is not that bad. So this ability here is this is your bread and butter. So this is the one I would be proccing constantly, applying that bleed, applying that trauma as much as you can, and also that amount of damage you're going to be dealing is just kind of the icing on the cake. So alright, moving on to his passive. This is his Crushing Blows. So each unit damaged by an ability grants a stack of Crushing Blows, dealing 17.4, 17.4, 17.4, 17.4, and 17.4 bonus damage for your next basic attack. Stacks up to 5 times, and each basic attack removes 1 stack. And again, we're getting basic attack damage scaling of 30 on this passive, on these stacks. So every time you use an ability, you're granting a stack of Crushing Blows, which is going to basically make your next basic attack stronger. It's going to give it this baseline bonus damage, and it's going to give you a 30 basic attack damage scaling added on top of that. Now, stacks up to 5 times. Well, the reason for that is because technically if you time your abilities right with your ultimate, remember, you gain 1, 2, or 3, depending on level, stacks of Crushing Blows. That's just those are free stacks. So say you've got level 3 Challenger's Rage and you activate that, you already have 3 stacks of Crushing Blows. Well, say you initiate with your Okaros charge and you hit an enemy, that's 4. Maybe you use your pull next to get them back into close range or whatever it may be. Now you have 5. Now typically reaching 5 isn't necessarily the goal. The goal is to just always be like proccing the Crushing Blow passive. So you really should always have like 1 or 2, maybe 3, depending on how you engage or whatever, but you want to have those Crushing Blow stacks always on, because that's going to empower your basic attacks. And that's kind of what Grux's kit is focused around, is empowering his basic attacks and making his basic attacks stronger. So like every time you use this cleave, you're getting a stack. Every time you knock him up with Okaros charge, you're getting a stack. That's what you constantly want to be doing. And once you use those basic attacks to remove a stack, you want to add a stack so that your basic attacks are just constantly hitting for more damage. So that's what Grux's kit is focused around, and that's kind of how you're going to build him in a sense too. I'll go over the potential builds and stuff and kind of best practices with him here in a little bit, but that's going to kind of cover his kit in a nutshell. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into the aspects that you're going to pick for Grux. So Grux has a couple of different options for aspects here, and a lot of them work really well for him. The ones I'm going to start with are kind of going to be your safer bets, and typically they're going to be a safer option for most bruisers or like melee junglers, and for the most part. But if you're playing Grux in the jungle, for sure, you're probably going to want to grab Beast Hunter. It's just a really good aspect to stack up, basically for free. I mean, all you're doing is you're getting stacks for your jungle minion kills and stuff like that, and then you're getting like endurance, slow resistance. You're gaining 20% more endurance at 30% max health. So just a really good aspect to have. And then Another safe option, you could just go Titan. That's basically, as you build health, you're going to get a power, and then you're going to get some health regen when taking percentages of damage. Those are just really good, like, general purpose bruiser aspects to have. You can go Rook as well. Same kind of thing. That would be more against like a really like crowd control heavy team or something like that, just to kind of keep you safe a little bit. Now, some other options that might be a little more risky but could be more rewarding as well is your purple aspects here. So aggressor, you could get that bonus movement speed going through fog walls, and then while in enemy territory you gain physical power. That is definitely a possibility. Maybe a little more risky, but with Grux being such a good early game like bully in the jungle, this actually can like really work in your favor. Opportunist is good. I don't know that it would be my top choice, but it is still a solid choice. Destroying enemy wards reduces your active trinket cooldown by 50% and grants true vision around the killer in an 1800 unit radius for 10 seconds. So that can potentially be really good. And then deal 8% additional damage to enemy heroes while you have no allied heroes within 1500 units. So that's a potentially very rewarding aspect, but also a potentially like risky one, because you're not gaining necessarily a passive boost. You're having to actively seek out these situations. So Rogue, I do like Rogue on Grux, and the reason being is because it kind of falls in line with like his kit in a sense. Damaging an enemy hero 3 times within 2 seconds deals 20 to 160 based on your hero level, plus 40% of your physical power and 25% of your energy power scaling. Physical or energy damage adaptive, so in a sense it would, like for Grux it would be physical, but whichever one that you had been building more of, physical or energy damage. But in this case for Grux it's physical damage, and that's on a 30-second cooldown, so you're essentially going to get a big chunk of additional damage every 30 seconds. So, and then your next basic attack deals bonus physical damage equal to 3 to 6%, 50% less for ranged heroes of the target's maximum health. So again, you're getting like a bonus on your basic attack. That's really good. That's going to basically add to his whole, idea of empowering his basic attacks, like dealing damage when you have crushing blows, stacks, stuff like that. And that is on a 24-second cooldown. So again, 24 seconds, 30 seconds, it seems like a lot, but really when you have this on all the time, like you're just gonna like be able to use it. Like you're gonna proc it and you're not really gonna like notice it necessarily. You're just gonna do a lot of damage. So I like Rogue. I think it's a solid choice. Maybe a tad risky because you're not getting some type of like passive bonus to like your health or whatever, but very potentially rewarding as well. Now, some of these red options are also good choices as well. Hunter, damaging enemy heroes, grants 1.2 to 3 physical or 2 to 5 energy power for 6 seconds. Again, that's going to be adaptive, so whichever one you have built more. In this case, it's going to be physical for Grux. Stacks up to 10 times. And you'll gain, and on the website here it's just got a formula. Basically you're going to gain a certain amount of move speed at max stacks. So again, this is something that's pretty good. Help you like stay engaged in a fight while you're dealing damage. Trigger happy down here, you're hitting 3 consecutive basic attacks on the same enemy hero. Provides a burst of 20 attack speed for 4 seconds, and that's on a 10-second cooldown, so not very bad on the cooldown, and a 3-second cooldown on the basic attack proc, so it's actually really good, providing the burst of attack speed, because you're going to be using your basic attacks. Like that's kind of, again, falls in line with the kit. So it's easy to proc this attack speed boost. Now Ace I don't see as much, like, as useful for Grux. Maybe if you're off in the off lane, just for like the minion last hits healing you. But this armor shred aspect here is pretty good. Like, it's pretty useful. It would be more for like if you're playing a true frontline role with Grux, I feel like, just because like you're not gonna really necessarily worry about shredding armor as a frontliner, as a bruiser. You're just gonna be focused on like killing the squishies first, and then helping your team finish off like the enemy's tankier heroes. So, but it is a possibility. I mean, it's I'm not saying it could work just fine on Grux if that's the way you wanted to go. Now King is another good one. Permanently gain 4 attack speed on multi-kills, so this is a little misleading. Multi-kills are considered, for this aspect, are considered anytime you kill minions. I believe it counts for heroes too, but it's mostly just you're going to get these off of minions, and so killing 2 or more minions kind of at the same time basically is going to permanently gain 4 attack speed. Gain 2 more attack speed for every 20 creep score, and 2 attack speed for every hero kill. Max of 20 total attack speed. So basically everything that you do, you gain attack speed. Pretty good. I don't necessarily think you need the attack speed on Grux. Like, it's nice, but I don't think you necessarily need it. Now, gain 1.5 to 2.5% based on your level of total basic attack damage as physical power for every 10% of your missing health. Now, this is a pretty good aspect for Grux. This is a pretty good passive bonus here. Basically, you're going to gain a percentage of basic attack damage as physical power for every 10% of your missing health. And if you remember, our basic attack damage is kind of like our bread and butter. That's going to give us a pretty good chunk of damage for every 10% of health we're missing. So again, it's a little more like situational, a little more risky, but if you think about it, I mean, you're probably going to be missing some health a lot. Just as a frontline bruiser, bullier, like melee hero, you're probably just like going to be missing some health. Even if it's just 10 or 20% of your max health that you're missing, you're still going to gain a good amount of damage off of that. So it's something to keep in mind there. Now, those aspects I covered, those are probably going to be your best options. One combination or different combinations of these are going to be the way to go. Now, as to which ones work the best, that's kind of, I'll leave that one up to you. You decide that one, because I feel like they'll all work different for different play styles and different like situations, different enemy team comps and all that stuff. So I'll let you guys decide that one, but those are the ones that I would go for, or I would target first. Alright, so with that being covered, let's go ahead and jump into the build for Grux. So we're going to hop over here. Grux's jungle build is going to start the same as pretty much 90% of the junglers in the game, and that's going to be your Affliction, your Health Pot, and your Rad Pulse. And so that's basically that's like the go-to starter kit for a jungler. Just helps with the early game sustain, and then also for your early game ganks, clearing those wards with the Rad Pulse. Past that, so what you're going to try and target first, if you can, is going to be your Sword of Souls. And so this one is kind of like up in the air, 50-50 on if you actually get ahead to build this, or if you're not even necessarily ahead, but if you're just on par, like you and the enemy jungler are kind of matched, or you're matched with the enemy laners or whatever it may be, I would still just go ahead and go into this. I would rush this. just so you can start stacking up those stacks for it. It's a really good item. It gives you so much damage, and it's essentially scales over the game because you're still stacking. Once you hit those max stacks, you know, this item really comes online. But if you're far behind, I wouldn't necessarily build this, because then you're gonna kind of put yourself a little bit more behind, just because you're not getting as much value out of that 2,900 gold right off the bat. But if you're ahead enough, I would definitely build this first. Now, after that, or say you don't build this first, say you're a little bit behind, but you need to build something else, a really good first item for Grux, or even second if you already built Sword of Souls, is going to be your Stimulant Gauntlet. So I've covered this one in several other videos and why this is such a good item. That Kill Claw passive is just so good on any hero who can proc abilities really quickly, and Grux is no exception to that. Some of his abilities are on long cooldown, but that right mouse button is on such a low cooldown that the combination of those is going to proc this pretty consistently, and that extra damage boost is just too good to pass up, especially on Grux, because obviously with Grux we're wanting to build damage, we're wanting to build basic attack damage, we want to hit as hard as we can. Now, it does give you health and mana and cooldown reduction as well, which is an added bonus, because we may not be building much armor with Grux, or at least ideally we're not going to be building much armor with Grux, but at least we're getting some health and mana to somewhat counteract that, give us a little more utility. So good item here. I would say if you don't build Sword of Souls first, you would go this one first. Now after that, so obviously after your first full build item, or in between somewhere, depending on how much gold you have at your backs, like you're gonna want to at least grab your first level boots here just to add that movement speed. The boots that you go into is kind of situational, and also maybe a little bit up to like personal preference, but I like to at least give one of these armor boots, like the physical armor or the inertia wraps. Like I like to go one of those just because I'm not going to build much armor as it is. So having a little bit of armor just right off the bat is nice. And then also the passives with the reducing the basic attack damage or your endurance is also nice. You could go red boots. I mean, the attack speed's nice, but again, I'm not really prioritizing attack speed with Grux. I'm more prioritizing like basic attack damage and proccing like, you know, crushing blow stacks, or proccing maybe a rogue passive or whatever that, you know. So the attack speed, not necessarily as big of a deal. Now, after you have, let's say you have your boots built and maybe your Sword of Souls, you'll want to go into Stimulant Gauntlet. Now, after that, a really good item for Grux is Demon Sword, and a really good item in general. And I've kind of covered this one as well in other builds and stuff, and why this one is so good. Not only are you getting physical power, you're getting 20 cooldown reduction, and you're getting some health, but that armor shredding, that's basically just the icing on the cake with this item. Like, the stats themselves are so good that you would want to build this probably anyways, but that passive of shredding armor and stacking, and then also being able to heal at max stacks of the item, that's just great. I mean, it'll keep you in the fight potentially, but it'll also help you take down enemy frontliners and help your ADC or your caster take down those frontliners. So say you initiate a fight and you have this, and you land a couple of either an ability and a basic, or a couple basics or whatever it is on that enemy frontliner. Now all of a sudden you've shredded part of their armor, and your ADC is going to be able to deal additional damage. So, like, obviously you're going to want to target the squishies, but sometimes you can't just walk right up to a squishy. Like, their frontliner is going to try and stop you if they can. So kind of utility in a sense, but also still falling in line with our damage first mindset here. Now, as far as your smite goes, or your affliction, You can rush the Affliction final build too. It's just, I think that if you can get this sort of souls done before, it gives you a lot more value. I mean, you're talking 900 more gold than finishing off your Affliction. Well, I guess if you have the baseline Affliction, it's like 1600 or whatever. But I do like the final Affliction. I would typically probably either go red or green, and more often than not I go green just for that passive of the Crushing Presence. But Grux's wave clear is so good already that you don't necessarily need that wave clear. It might just be one of those, if you back and you don't have enough gold for, like, you know, to finish one of these items, maybe you finish this one off, or you go into the damage version. Like, that's kind of like, it's kind of situational, honestly. Like, if you want a little bit more health and cooldown reduction, then you, in the Crushing Presence, you go the green. If you want the physical power and the cooldown reduction and a reduced amount of health, you can go the Rain of Fervor. I mean, that's just, it's kind of personal preference. It's kind of the same as the boots. I mean, whatever you feel like you need more. If you feel like you need more damage, then go red. I don't necessarily rush it, though. Maybe after like 2 or 3 items, I'll go in and finish this. So if you like finishing it early, I know some people just like to right off the bat finish this item for the early power spike, and that's fine too. I mean, that works out just as well, I think. But after that, after your, say you've got your Demon Sword, your Sword of Souls, your Stimulant Gauntlet, you can go into a couple of options, and really it's situational. I mean, if this is where, if you're going to build some armor, this is probably where I would do it. Maybe a Baleful if you don't go the Almighty Gale, or maybe a Blighted or a Ring. It just kind of depends. I mean, if the enemy team is heavy on physical damage and basic attack, like maybe they have like a double ADC, like they have a ranged offlane or something like that, you could obviously go into like a Blighted Chestplate. Baleful, if they're heavy on casters, or maybe they have some like crazy CC, you could always go Ring. That's a good tech item. I think to keep in line with a damage build, though, I like going into like one of the on-hit ability, or one of the on-hit effect items, like a T-Fist here, or a crossbow. I personally like Fist of the Titan more on Grux, but you can easily get away with crossbow, giving you more physical power at the cost of some health. But since we're already building health through our power items anyways, like I feel like this one kind of falls right in line. Plus your on-hit effect is based off of your maximum health, so it kind of just keeps the ball rolling on that. Outside of that, though, another item I like to run, I don't necessarily rush it, and I sometimes don't build it, just kind of depends, but I do like Reaper's Cleaver on Grux. Now I know the cleave, adding the cleave isn't necessarily a necessity on Grux, since he already has like cleave, like tons of cleave, but what it will do is it'll increase your cleave damage, which he already has, so you're basically adding more damage. You're getting some life steal, you're getting some physical power, you're getting some attack speed, so those are all things that, I mean, yeah, sure, we'll take those as Grux. And then your passive, though, gives you some spell vamp, and you get a cleave of an active cleave, which will deal 25 plus 125% of your basic attack damage as physical damage, and a 400 unit radius around yourself. So like, this active is going to deal damage. It's essentially a free ability every 15 seconds, because you can proc this, and it's going to deal damage based off your basic attack damage, which is what we're building into, which is kind of our bread and butter, if you remember. So I like this one. I like that active. I like everything about what this item offers. So it's not, like I said, it's not necessarily like something I rush, but it's definitely in the mix. Now, outside of that, you're probably looking at just some like tech options. Just some like, final build type items. If you want to go into like Bloodlust Saber for an extra dash, or like Death Blink or a Cursed Blink, something like that, you could easily do that. If you were considering this, I would probably do this a little bit earlier though, but it is an option there. You've got different things, basically anything that's going to give you some damage and hopefully some health. I think we kind of already threw most of them in there, but again, I've talked about Unyielding Mantle in past videos. I really like that one. It's a good option even when you're ahead. Like, I know when you're ahead, you're not really worrying about like, oh, what if I get low on health? But that is just a free passive of when you do get low in health, you're just going to get that shield. Again, it's giving us physical power and health. Those are two things that we definitely want. And then once you do get that shield, it's going to cleanse any debuffs, and you're going to gain 30% endurance. So like, good item. I mean, it's a solid choice to finish off a build, or anywhere in there, like 3rd, 4th, 5th item. It's just a solid choice. It's not as flashy as like a Demon Sword or a Stimulant Gauntlet, but I think it's easily just as useful in certain situations. So that pretty much covers our build. Again, this was mainly focused on damage building. With your armor building, if you're going to go into more of a tank Grux, you can kind of plug and play with like the typical tank items, which I've kind of covered in other builds for other heroes that are a little more on the tanky side. Any of your armor cards, any kind of combination of those will work. Knight's Battle Plate's obviously a really good item for anyone going pure frontline tank, or even just if you want to throw in this at the end of your build just to get a little bit more beefy, you can do that as well. But that pretty much covers everything. So I hope you guys find this useful. I hope it helps, maybe bridge the gap. Maybe you've tried to play Grux and you didn't quite understand, or whatever the case may be. Maybe you didn't realize some of these items that you could build and what they do and how they add to the kit. But hopefully it all helps you in some way. Hopefully all these videos, are at least giving you some type of information. That's my goal, is just to get the information out there and hopefully help somebody out. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate all the support again. Thanks for viewing. Thanks for sticking around and watching. Thanks for your patience with the skipping weeks and shuffling stuff around. I really do appreciate it. I'm trying to get these out regularly more often, so bear with me. But until next time, guys, see you later.